Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track from an act named the Kyle Jordan Project titled Loved by You. And if we switch over to here we have ourselves the art on the screen here. I should note that this is off of the album, the upcoming album titled Whiskey and Wildflowers, which as I understand is being released on the 26th of April. I'll double check and post, but this review of the song should be going out on that date. So if you're watching this and you like this track, feel free to go check out the rest of the album via their various social medias and such. But this has been written by Kyle Jordan May and Greg Van Kerkhoff, and then it's been produced by Leroy Stagger. So that's basically the credits as I understand it. And we're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Got a kind of a fizzy countryish tone with the guitars and everything.
Cocaine and whiskey don't kick like they used to do.
Nice natural harmonics there.
They're just cheap substitutions for the way I felt with you. The sun keeps on rising, just like it's always done. But the light reminds me you left me here alone, my daily hangover.
It's nice to have the space between the notes as well for the singer to appreciate the guitar, bass, and drum parts. An interesting story so far as well.
I can't forget how you held me. Yeah, you wrapped me up in your cocoon. There's nothing quite like being loved by you. Ain't that fucking beautiful?
Great chord change there.
Thought I was a joker in the cards that you've been dealt. Yeah, the ace in your pocket till I lost my sense of self. Trying to be what you wanted, but I can never measure up to all your expectations. Nothing ever filled your cup. And I can't forget how you held me. Yeah, you wrapped me up in your cocoon. There's nothing quite like being loved by you.
I like how they harmonized at the end in that final section there. It's really sweet. You know, you get the male perspective in the first verse and then the lady perspective in the second, how they talk about each other, their own personal experiences.
Ain't that fucking beautiful? Ain't that fucking beautiful?
Just like my mother, you walked away.
Just like my father,
You forced me to change. We're both looking for truth in recycled mistakes. Can we leave them behind, or are we doomed to keep safe? I can't forget how you held me. Yeah, you wrapped me up in your cocoon. There's nothing quite like being loved by you. So fucking beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Whoa. So fucking beautiful.
Oh, we're gonna just allow things to kind of peter out. That's cool. There's like a rotor, like wow, wow, wow thing going on. I assume that's one of the effects on one of the instruments or something like that. Because we typically had guitar, bass, drums, as well as the harmonized vocals on this track. I enjoyed quite a lot of it. We're gonna have a look at the lyrics next, and then we're gonna have gonna do the conclusion. So we got the lyrics here. Greg begins singing, "Cocaine and whiskey don't kick like they used to. They're just cheap substitutions for the way I felt with you." So we've been trying to sort of dose ourselves with things that might make us feel something potentially, but it's just not comparable to how we used to feel with that person. The sun keeps on rising, but the light reminds me. Yeah, so basically every time they get up in the morning, they realize that that person left them and nothing seems to numb the pain. In the chorus, they're talking about how that person made them feel protected, like they were in a cocoon. There's nothing quite like being loved like you. And the so fucking beautiful part is basically that's like the most beautiful thing to them, is that connection they have with that person, that experience. And I suppose Katie, who is a lady singer, they're saying, "Thought I was a joker in the cards that you've been dealt. The ace in your pocket till I lost my sense of self." Oh, okay, I get it. So basically, it was a relationship that was not, it was one-sided, effectively. One person was having to give to kind of help the other person. It was indicative of potentially a toxic sort of relationship that they had there. So all you could never measure up to your expectations. Nothing ever filled your cup. So I understand this is why I appreciate good given lyrics as well. Sometimes you can just miss a key line that helps explain everything. I can't forget how you held me. Yeah, you wrapped me up in your cocoon. Yep, that's fine. Just like my mother. Yeah, so they're looking at their parents and their experiences with them and how they compare that to the situation they're currently in. We're looking for truth and recycle mistakes. Can we leave them behind, or are we doomed to keep saying, "Yeah, okay, this is cool. I like this track. Well done." Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named the Kyle Jordan Project, titled Loved by You. Now, I know what the track is about. It's about, as I mentioned in the lyrics section, in case you didn't see that, I was talking about how I think this track is about that the guy is basically, he's very kind of codependent almost on this woman. This woman is, this relationship, this love they have is the most necessary thing to him. The drugs, the alcohol, etc. Like nothing feels the same after she left, and he sees it as her leaving him, like he is the victim in the situation. And then for the lady, Katie, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, because Greg was the male singer in this and Katie was the lady singer. And Katie's talking about how she feels as if Greg is always just trying to sort of take and not giving back. And so you got the situation where they're both broken people who lose their sense of self. They can't really handle being on their own for different reasons. And they look to their parents and where they came from to try and figure out how they got into the situation in the first place. And inevitably, it's just a situation where they're saying, are we just doomed to continue to have this cycle there? Doomed to continue to just want that cocoon, that cocoon there, that safe space, even if it's not necessarily what we need. It might be what we want, but it may not be healthier for us to have that. I think that's an interesting situation to talk about. The backing behind it, not to get into it too early, is quite somber and bittersweet sounding with the chord choices and such like that. And the lead parts is, it's a slower track. I can understand as well from the vocal performance how we communicated this. There is a sense of solemn awareness of our own situation within the way we express ourselves within those first sections, both from Greg and from Katie. They're both proficient singers, very comfortable in their vocal ranges to head into his voice. And we harmonize well with each other, but we also stage ourselves and present ourselves well on our own. The words came through clearly. I think we emoted effectively and appropriately for what we were discussing. This is not light subject matter. There's some heavy stuff being spoken about here, but we do it in a way which is very tasteful, whilst not being too overwhelming, but also it doesn't underplay it. It doesn't sugarcoat it. And I appreciate the range with some of the legato and tails on the melodies that we had, some of the variations in that last section where they were harmonizing, kind of going to and fro and stuff. I think it was also good, again, to have the guy's perspective and then the woman's perspective, and then for them both to come together as if they've got some common ground, even though they're both unhappy. I appreciate that developmental. It's smart. This is well thought out. The vocals were tight, and I think that the way that they sung the lyrics, it makes sense. You know, you can kind of connect the dots. The track is 4 minutes 40. I think that that's a good length for it. We had enough going on with the guitar parts, the bass and the drums to be able to sort of follow through with it and make sense of it. What I will say is I liked the complexity to the guitar arrangements. We had several different guitar layers. We had the main sort of strummed rhythm parts on the sides that I think were double tracked. We had some leads with some like slides and maybe some little kind of hammer and pulley-offy bits in the mid kind of sides, and then we had occasionally some echoes on the far-reaching bits, and we had different guitar effects. Like we might have had some rotary reverb, some like vibrato tremolo, just kind of mess with the volume of it, wah, that kind of effect there. We messed around with the stereo field, and we had the guitar surround us in different points there, and it was a nice accompaniment to what was going on with the vocals. I think the track itself would have been enough with the guitars, the way they were done. It's a situation where I think we had quite a lot going on with the guitars, with the complexity of the instrumental layers and stuff earlier on. And it was almost to a point where I would say we didn't need as much earlier on, and we could have added more as we went along to kind of match what was going on with the increased additions to the vocals there, like to have more of a sense of unison between those two compartments of the backing and the vocals. But I think, to be fair, that the amount of energy and kind of movement with the guitars could potentially communicated the sameness of that feeling, even though we were let in little by little from the vocals. So like a foil developmentally to that, as if to say you're getting more of the story without it kind of shoved in your face all at once, but the guitar is letting you know that it's the same experience for the people telling the story throughout. I don't know. We had a lot of variation though. Like, it was a really competent guitar performance, and a lot of the parts were really beautiful, and I really appreciate the effort to have that much variety within instrumentally with the different riffs and lead parts there. I think we stuck with the traditional major and minors there, some countryish, almost kind of potentially bluesy elements occasionally as well, working with those scales there, interesting use of chromatics. That chord, that fucking beautiful, that chord there is a different one. I'm wondering if that's a parallel major or minor that was meant to kind of add a bit of kind of edge to it, go like, whoa, this is kind of it's like an exasperation of just how beautiful it was, an extra bit of emphasis because of the chord outside of the typical shapes and triads that we were using before. So I think if that was the intention with that chord, that was a smart move on those lines. It was one of the few times we had it. Otherwise, it was very similar, and we created an aesthetic there that was boosted by the consistency of the bass notes there, typically working with the root notes, and the drums with the chord note grooves, maybe occasional eighths or sixteenths, but it was purely a support role. Like, the drums were not wanted to be the focal point of the main source of attention. They were typically pocketing, so I think that was a smart move there. Now, the theme itself, on top of that, I think that it was meant to indicate, they were trying to be palatable with the chord choices. Like, they were trying not to create anything too affronting. Like, structurally, we had verse chorus were like an interlude thing where we kind of got rid of the low end, and then we went back into it, a reinvention, I suppose. Well, not necessarily a reinvention, but we did another go through of the chorus before the things just kind of faded out at the end. And that is quite a long song, but I think they had enough with the guitars and the vocals to carry it. And I think that, yeah, again, the choice of themes, it was meant to sound friendly, but there wasn't a massive push towards a sense of overall positivity with it. It was like, almost like we were going for melancholy with it. Like, we were just kind of accepting of how sort of screwed up things were, and we were grateful for being in love, but I don't know, it wasn't too dire. I think it's a 50-50 between trying to make something that was pleasant to listen to and trying to evoke the sense of almost apathy to the situation. I'm not sure. It's a tricky thing, because I know with a lot of the music I've heard in genres like this, you don't have too much sort of dark stuff going on. We're trying to keep it majorish, and it's not something I always agree with. but I also understand that you don't always have to have it on the nose all the time. So it's fine. I don't think there were any sort of weird notes or uncomfortable situations that made a that didn't make sense. And I don't think there's a note out of place. But the studio recording, mixing, and mastering, I think it was done well. It sounded like it was quite compressed. It sounded like things were squashed together between the higher and low parts. You could hear a bit of a hiss occasionally. I'm not sure if that was a deliberate decision, like a hiss in some of the preamps of the microphones or something like that. That isn't to say it was mixed or mastered badly. If it was like a live performance, that's fine. The guitars had a nice warm glow to them. They were quite present in the mix. The vocals as well were quite present in the mix there. It could have just been my headphones are higher than usual. That music beat is boosting stuff, but it never boosts stuff to a peak, so yeah, I don't think that's an issue there. The bass and drums were well balanced. Apart from the compression where things felt kind of tight and there was less dynamic range than I was expecting, the leveling was solid. There were no weird resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum, and I think that things were nice and wide in the stereo field. You know, that the music surrounded you. Again, there was various positions of the guitars there, like from that all the way back to that on the left side there. And we made the most of the tools that we had in our toolkit. It was a good effort. It was nice and low with the pumping, so the bus compression and limiting was handled. Like, it didn't compress to the point where it was like pumping and kind of like badly done. It's quite a loud track, but that's not a bad thing. You know, it's just what it is. But this is my review, though, of the Kyle Jordan project with their track Loved by You, and hopefully you are. I am wondering if there's some resonant frequencies, actually. In the high range of the vocals, there could have been like a 3 to 4 kilohertz peak there if you notch it 0.5 dB below. It just sounded like there was a bit of a resonance in the higher parts there, 3 or 4 kilohertz range. It might be worth checking before we release the track. Just as in certain sort of stereo or headphones, it could be a little bit resonant, but outside of that, thank you for watching my review of this track from an act named the Kyle Jordan Project, titled Loved by You, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go check them out via their various social medias and their website, and stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as he the hell more than ever thought of crazy stuff going on in the world, and I will catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.